everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hope you're all having a good day.
I'm never sure if we're live or not.
I'm not
We
either. Okay, good.
Okay.
All right. So, everybody, welcome to the Isn't It Romantic Book Club. We're here today to discuss Sarra Cannon's very twisty YA thriller called The Disappearance of Vanessa Shaw. And if that title isn't enough to make you want to read it, I don't know what is, because it was a very intriguing title. We're beaming live into all our pages today, and we're on YouTube. So if you are watching anywhere, please be sure that you comment, ask a question for Sarra. We love to have questions, and our authors love to answer your questions. Also, let us know where you're from. If you're from someplace fun and interesting, we always love to hear, like, if you're from like New Zealand or Australia or Germany or something fun, or even the United States somewhere. We love to hear that. All right, so I'm Abbie Roads. I write dark romantic thrillers. I tell people to think like an episode of Criminal Minds meets a love story with a little twist. Here's a little stack of my books. That's Dangerous Dreams and Broken Dreams and Shattered Dreams and Defying Evil and Capturing Fate. So that's me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Diana Muñoz Stewart. I write romantic suspense for the strong of heart. It's the kind of romance that will get your heart pumping, lots of action and adventure. My latest series, the Bad Legacy series, the second book just released, Fatal Promises, and here's the first one, Broken Promises. So more on that later.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jennie Marts. I write small town stories with humor and heart. My stories will get your blood pumping for a different reason, because I write steamy hockey playing cowboys that get other things pumping too. So I write hot cowboys. I write hockey playing rom-coms. I also write cozy mysteries. So occasionally a dead body shows up. Here's some of my cozy mysteries: the beekeeping series, the book club cozies. Love this cover so much. That's my newest cozy. And I've got a new book coming out in a week and a half. Super excited about that. So I have a new series. The Dodge Ford and Chevy are three brothers whose mom named them after the trucks that their deadbeat dads drove away from them in. And there's a new book coming out in this series. These are all kind of wounded cowboys, curvy wallflower heroines. So there's a lot of second chance, fake relationships, small town. I don't know. Lots of fun in these. It's so hard to hold these books. Why is it so hard to hold them in front of the camera?
I know. I just gave up and decided to do it too.
So this is the first book in this series, and I am mentioning this right now because this book is on sale for 99 cents for this week. So the new book coming out is called Lost and Found Cowboy, and Love at First Cowboy is 99 cents right now. So if you haven't started the series, it's a great time to jump in with this series because it's 99 cents for the first one, and that's all I do. And I'm so excited to talk to Sarra today.
My name is Sharon Wray. I write romantic suspense. Think like sexy hot green berets and like Dan Brownish kind of mysteries. Yeah, they're kind of really long, but that's okay. The newest one is Love's Last Kiss. A Promise at Midnight is on its way. Working hard on it. I also write contemporary romance. Of course, I have none of those books with me, but one of them is in an anthology called Just Add Love, which all the proceeds are going to breast cancer research. So the charity anthology. So I'll put that link in the description below. And today I'm very, very excited to welcome Sarra Cannon. But first I want to do a couple of housekeeping things. One is if you're a Facebook user commenting, please list your name, because depending on the Facebook group you're coming in or the page, we get Facebook users, so we can't respond to your name. So that would be awesome. Second, we've talked about this before, we're talking about thrillers. And as you know, when we talk about thrillers and mysteries, we really don't want to spoil the fabulous plot twists that are in any book, but especially this book. So let me introduce Sarra. I'm very excited to introduce her. I first heard about Sarra in 2018 when I was at a Source Books. We were all there together at Source World. Do you remember that? Anyway, another author named Ronnie Lawrence said, "Oh, you have to join this publisher planner Facebook group, and there's a girl named Sarra Cannon, and she's awesome." So I first met her there, and then I followed her over to her YouTube channel, and then read all of her YA and new adult books. So I'm very happy she's here today. Sarra is an Amazon top 100 best-selling author. Sarra Cannon writes magical contemporary fantasy novels with both teen and college-age characters. Lots of twists, which is absolutely true, especially in her current novel. Her novels often stem from her own experiences growing up in the small town of Hawkinsville, Georgia, where she learned that being popular always comes at a price and relationships are rarely as simple as they seem. With over 750,000 books sold, totally awesome, Sarra loves writing witchy books and connecting with fans. Sarra goes live on YouTube to hang out, answer questions, and read original stories every week. If you go to her, Sarra Cannon, she has 2 channels. The Heart Breathings channel, where she talks about productivity, and she talks about her courses, HB90, which is a fabulous productivity planning course, which I took. I think I was in the beta class for that, and I've been using the program ever since. She also has a self-publishing course called Publish and Thrive. I've also been in that. That's fabulous. And then her Sarra Cannon channel, she does her Friday afternoon chats, which are really, really fun. So you can join her over there. Anyway, we're thrilled to have her here today, and I think we can bring her.
Welcome.
Welcome. Hey, Sarra.
Welcome. Hi.
That's so fun. I love that I get to be backstage watching, because then I can kind of get my nerves out for a second until I'm off stage.
Well, this is the last place to be nervous.
Yeah. For each other. So.
Yeah, we just have fun.
Too. Yeah, this is going to be fun. Yay. Hi, Sarah. Hey, Jenna. And Jody Jean Daniels is here. It's good to see familiar faces.
Oh, how wonderful. Yes. Okay. And if I'm looking down at my phone, it's because I'm trying to monitor I'm not being rude. I'm monitoring the comments on all the other pages. So Sarra, welcome.
Yeah. We were really excited to find out why this switch to thriller. Why the switch to a thriller?
You know, I grew up obsessed with Christopher Pike. Anybody else read Christopher Pike? It was very much a like 90s teen kind of writer, and really before R.L. Stine and the Goosebumps really took off, there was Christopher Pike. And when you used to go to the bookstore, that was there was just the smallest little sliver of a teen section, and it was either him or like Lurleen McDaniels, and I loved both of those styles. Like, it's either going to make you cry or it's going to make you like wonder what's happening with all the twists and things like that. And I always had this idea of writing something similar to that Christopher Pike style. And so when I was actually way back, feels like now, when Sharon and I guess first connected in 2018, I got pregnant with my daughter Evie, and I just had brain fog for my fantasy. I was like, I cannot write this. So what else could I do? And for some reason I thought, let's write a thriller, and could not pull off the twist. Like, my brain just would not come up with the twist. So I started it back then, but didn't get back to it until 2022, and started working on it again. And for me, it was the call of writing something standalone, something that just these characters started talking to me, this idea of a girl who has disappeared and nobody knows what happened to her. I had a friend in high school actually disappeared, not during high school, but shortly after. And it actually is like the largest case file in GBI, like Georgia Bureau of Investigation history. Tara Grinstead, some of you might have heard of her because she was on, like, they featured her on a lot of podcasts, and it was eventually solved, but for more than a decade, nobody knew what happened to her. And she just had been on my mind for the whole time she was missing. And even now I still think of her, and we weren't super close, but growing up in a small town, you kind of know everybody. So I just thought, man, I would love to write a story like that, where you really get to know what's going on in these kids' lives, that, everybody has their own story, and everybody has their secrets and their things that they hide or the things they're ashamed of. And I thought it would be fun to explore that in a story.
I'm just super impressed. I love true crime. And that you based it on that. Wow, that is really interesting to me. And before we go any further, could you tell everyone watching what your book is about?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I haven't practiced an actual blurb, but it's.
I know. Isn't that awful when we ask that? Like, somebody
see if I can do it quick. I'm like, let me look over. So the Disappearance of Vanessa Shaw is essentially about a group of teens that are good, close friends in high school. And one night, right before their senior year, the main popular girl, Vanessa, runs out into the woods in the middle of the night crying and is never seen again. And so their lives take a turn that whole next year as they try to figure out what happened or hide secrets and things like that. But the premise is that her brother Kieran has brought them all back to the cabin for one last post-graduation hurrah before they all disappear into their own college lives and other things like that. So if you've ever played or heard of the video game Until Dawn, which they're actually going to make into a movie, I'm a big gamer person, it's very similar to that premise. So in that particular game, it's a family as well, and his two sisters get lost in the woods and are never heard from again, and so he calls them all back. So it's very much like Christopher Pike meets Until Dawn, I guess you could say, but that is the main premise, is that sort of locked room. They're all on this sort of remote island in a storm trying to figure out what happened to Vanessa, really.
Well, I read it on Kindle. So Sarah, hold the book up so everyone can see how pretty the cover is.
Yeah.
So this is the cover. And the keys, of course, play a role. And there is actually a second cover, which I know some of you said you had not seen.
I had not seen that.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
When I first decided that I was going to write a thriller, kind of ghost story thriller story, I was going to write 3 of them, not connected to each other exactly. But the first one was Disappearance of Vanessa Shaw. The second one, which may still come eventually, was The Possession of Mira Black. And then the third one is The Haunting of Luna Day. And I have bits and pieces of each of these 3 books written. And so I got covers for all 3 of them. And this was the original cover done by Quamber Designs. And I love this cover. But as you know, most indie authors understand, the cover popularity and trends change so quickly that this was done in 2018. And I felt like YA has had such a moment in thrillers over the past few years that the popular covers had changed so much. I thought I really want to do a different cover, but so many people had seen me on YouTube talking about this book with this cover that I thought I'm going to make it available for the people that want to have that cover that they saw so often on my channel. But this cover I love too. And I already have her working on a replacement cover for another actual sort of paranormal thriller that I wrote called Deep Dark Secrets, that was meant to be the beginning of a series, but that is being rewritten as a standalone also. So it has those same thriller elements. So she's doing kind of a similar cover to this for that.
Do you know which one is the bestseller cover yet? Have you?
It's definitely this one by Double. Yeah. And this is the only one that's available in ebook, but I did put them both up for like just a one-off chance to get a signed book from me. And this one sold hundreds more than the other, but a lot of people bought both, which made me really happy. I was like, thank you. You guys are awesome.
That's super impressive, the way that you are, the way that you can pivot like that. And I feel like right now, oh my gosh, that's like the name of the game right now, is be able to pivot and change and do something 1,000 times different than what you did before, because what worked last week doesn't work this week. But yeah. I'm just really impressed at the way that you can pivot like that. What do you think is your biggest way that you've had to pivot over the last year?
Oh my goodness. I think
it's a big question.
It's a big question. And you know, for me, I think the answer might be different from a lot of authors, just because when I first started out in 2010, it was the early days of self-publishing, and it was a lot easier to get your books in front of people. Like the 99-cent sale would make it into the top 1,000 on Amazon at the very least, just because it was a 99-cent book, and there weren't that many out there in 2010. But now, obviously, visibility is one of the hardest things. But I also put so much of my heart and soul into Heart Breathings that I just wasn't writing. And so the biggest pivot for me is just my husband kind of, it felt like a slap in the face. It's not an actual slap in the face, but an emotional one, where he said, well, are you, thank you, Diane. He's like, are you a YouTuber course creator who sometimes writes books as a hobby? or are you a writer who sometimes makes YouTube videos? And that was hard for me because I want to be both things full time, but the realization that it's hard to balance and juggle motherhood, especially, you think it is a lot when they're tiny, but you think things are going to get easier as they get older, and it doesn't. It's like now they have baseball practices and other things and emotional needs that they didn't
gets
have
more complicated. Yeah.
It gets more complicated. So trying to be a full-time mom and a full-time YouTuber and a course creator and a writer, it's a lot to juggle. And so I think my biggest pivot now is just thinking, how do I prioritize my writing in a really busy life? Because part of this book for me was less about like, let me try to get something in on the market, and so much more about, I just want to write something I'm excited to write, something that just feels really fun. And sometimes my other major series is called the Shadow Demon Saga, and I love it. It's my heart. But the deeper you get into a series, sometimes the more complex it gets and the more difficult it gets to really make sure you're living up to the expectation of those twists and turns and those characters. And I just got so in my head about it with pressure that I was like, I need to write something that will be fun, something that just feels excited every time I sit down to work on it. And it took me a while to get back to that joy, I think, but now I found it.
But you picked something that's technically hard to write.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Kelly.
I mean,
Which cracks me up. You keep saying fun. I'm like, oh my God, it was, you had all these point of view and so much going on. And
I take it you're a plotter, right? Because oh my gosh, how could you keep it all straight with all the points of view? I was like, oh my gosh, she has to be plotting this. I'm a pantser, so I admire you.
Oh my gosh, there were so many times. So just for anyone that hasn't read the book yet, it is dual timeline. So you have the present tense timeline where you've got Lorelai as the main character, and she was the last one to see Vanessa alive. And so she's returning after having moved away for her senior year. She's the only one that was away. So you've got her timeline in the present day here, back with her friends, and all of her issues that she's dealing with. But then you also have the past timeline the summer leading up to Vanessa's disappearance. And that includes all the point of view of each of the characters that are there at the cabin, including Vanessa's point of view. And there were definitely, oh, thank you, Martha. There were definitely times when I cried and said, I think I don't know that I can do this, because thrillers are hard. That kind of mystery, I think I stretched my craft abilities to the limit. And now I hope I'll be a better writer forever because of it, because I had to learn as I went, because it seems when you read really great thrillers that it's a lot easier than it actually is. I thought, I'll just plot it backwards and build in the clues and it'll be easy. And it took 2 full years to write this book. And for me, that's a long time. I mean, I'm not a fast writer, but that was probably the longest I've ever spent like actively working on a book. But I was so proud of it when I finished it, because I crawled into bed with my husband at like 4 a.m. after my final read through and was like sobbing. He's like, what happened? I'm like, I think I actually pulled it off. Like, I think I actually pulled it off, which was something I wasn't sure I could do for the longest time, because you've got that feeling of like, I just want it. At some point, I want you to question every single person in that room. And that was the goal.
And
I'm the same way. I've written 37 books. And every time when I finish and I'm done, I just like sit in my chair and I just start crying.
Yeah.
It's just like this like sobbing, like I did it again. I was able to finish. It's like and I'm kind of a crier anyway, but
yeah, me too.
I just start sobbing. Like I just sit there and do like a full on shoulder shake, like bawl it out.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's just that release of, I have worked on this for so long, and it's such a private thing, even though I do a lot of writing vlogs and things like that and share it. It's just you and that keyboard and you and those characters in your head for so long that it's such a private thing of all your doubts, all your questions, thinking of the reader as you're writing it and thinking, I just want to express what I'm trying or what I can see in my head to them so that they can see it the same way. And there's always that bit of doubt while you're writing of whether you can do it. Will I have the skill
Yeah.
to do it? And that is one of the most rewarding things of writing, is that moment when you're like, it's done. And it's hard to let it go, but it is done. It's nice.
You know, that
Sarah,
is weird that we all have that doubt, even though we've all written and completed books. And that we all still struggle with it and still have that moment at the end. Like, I guess that's what makes it all worth it, right?
Yeah.
But do you think, and this is kind of a question for all of us, when you accomplish something so tremendous, like The Disappearance of Vanessa Shaw is just so technically beautiful, not just the story, but just the craft of it all, because of the way it's plotted and crafted.
Right.
Do you think it's going to be hard going back to the Shadow Demons? I love those books, but they have multiple POVs, but the style is a little more easygoing, right? Do you think you're going to find yourself being super critical as you go into the books again?
Maybe.
Like,
Yeah.
you know,
And
worried, oh, now I have to make this one as technically competent, or, you know, I mean, technically complicated as this one, or can I go back? Will you be able to go back into the same? Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah, I do. And I think that in some ways, what I'm hoping is that it will feel a lot easier. I don't know if that's going to be true or not, but I have in my Shadow Demon saga, there's 11 books and then a couple of spinoff series. And I'm working on another spinoff series because it has been a few years since I wrote book 11 and there's only one book left. And there, like I said, is so much pressure to like close all the threads, make everything work right in that last book. And I just intuitively, some part of me was like, you need to explore another set of characters because there's something else that's a piece of the puzzle you just haven't discovered yet. And so I'm writing a spinoff. And so far, this one is just single point of view. And it's fun because it's brand new world that exists with the same set of rules as my main series. And so I don't have to do, it's still world building because it's a kind of a mirror world and it's almost like a prison world. I had one of my friends and admins said it's like a snow globe world, which I really like that description of it because it's like a prison inside I'm trying to think how to explain it exactly, but she gets pushed through a mirror and she's in a world that exists outside of space and time where
Oh, I love it.
people are left as prisoners basically. And so it's an exciting way to explore the world that I love without having to tie in all of the old stuff. Exactly. It's like a fresh start, but it will eventually tie things in. But all that to say, I think just anytime we like begin to stretch our abilities, it only makes it easier to write the next thing. And we take that knowledge of every single book that we have and just kind of like moving forward to write this next thing, even though it's a different genre. Maybe it'll be faster paced. Maybe it'll have a little bit more intricacy to it just because it was fun. But I do appreciate you saying that, Sharon, because it was very sweet to hear like that somebody recognized the work that went into it. But what I always said is I hope it doesn't feel complicated.
No,
when you read.
No, not at all. And especially I'm reading as an adult reader and as like the librarian in me is very like, oh, who would I give this book to? Right.
Yeah.
I think especially because Lorelai was such a powerful protagonist and just you felt her emotions so deeply, thinking this is perfect for the older the 14-year-old who's reading above her comprehension level and her emotional age, and like the 17 to like 22-year-old girl who's still floating between those ages of in maturity, and then for anybody really. But I think you really hit that core audience with those emotions. So let me ask you: do you identify more with Vanessa or Lorelai?
Definitely Lorelai, 100% Lorelai. Yeah, I mean, Vanessa was the popular girl, and I was never the popular girl. I was always on the outs, and I was the smart girl, I guess. I was, president of this club or president of that, but I was not popular at all. And I desperately wanted to be. And I think a lot of my characters, including Harper from my Shadow Demon saga, you kind of feel that because when I go back to high school, that's some of the things that I think about is just that desire so much to fit in and to be a part of the crowd and a part of the group, but then realizing, do I have to sacrifice the truth or my authenticity in order to belong? And that's a theme I explore a lot in my fiction.
I love
And I
that
think
little
that resonates
description.
most with teens and even adults, I mean,
Yeah.
we more relate to the outsiders, I think.
Yeah.
I love that description she had of herself where she was like, what did she say? She was like a hobbit that escaped Mordor and she binged Oreos at Netflix or something. Like, this is such a great way. Like, where Vanessa is like this supermodel and she's more like the hobbit that escaped Mordor.
That opening scene, I felt like, okay, I have a lot of work I want to do right here to really describe, because it's the only time you really see Vanessa and Lorelai together alive, like, in that moment. And it's like, okay, we just need to make sure we understand the contrast between these two characters and how Lorelai really doesn't see herself clearly, because she's always comparing herself to this beautiful, rich girl that she, is never going to live up to. So she thinks, but.
Well, that line where she says, within that only scene where they're together, and she says to Vanessa, he makes me feel seen, or I was chosen, right? Well, it was like, he picked me. He picked me.
Yeah.
I think a lot of women and young girls can identify with that. That was really powerful, I thought.
Yeah.
That is the only scene. I guess that is the only scene where they have dialogue.
Go ahead, Diana.
Sorry, Sharon. I didn't mean to step on you. I was just interested in how all of your books seem to have a supernatural element, even the thriller, really.
Yeah. I think sometimes too, that part of like self-doubt is so many of the popular young adult thrillers don't have a paranormal element to them. They're fast-paced and like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I love it. You've got all of the teen stuff, but you really don't see a lot of paranormal, like witchery or anything like that in this. And this does not have witches like my normal, but it does have a paranormal element to it. And I think what held me back for the first year I was working on this is that I kept trying to tone that down and not make it as much a part of the story as it became. And it wasn't until I finally said, you know what, this is what's coming out. And whether it's the most popular thing or not the most popular thing, this is what the story needs to be. And it wasn't until then that it started really coming together with the flashbacks and other things that happened throughout the story. So.
Oh, I love it. That's just the way your mind works.
Yeah.
And I feel like you have to be true to yourself with stuff like that. I think it's like your brain saying, this is what I need to write.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And I think that there is something about just allowing yourself to be creatively free in that way. And there's a market to think about too, but it's just, in the end, my readers are going to love it better if it's what was genuinely, wanted the story. It's like the story has a mind of its own, and it's just going to be what it needs to be. And, once you give in to that, sometimes it's a much better book.
Sarah, I've read all your books, so I can see the themes in all of them, except for, and the themes are a little bit different in your older, the older books, the Fair Hope, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, were you a Buffy fan?
Yes. How did you guess?
And to the viewers, there's nothing Buffy-esque about these books, but it's the same emotions. It's those same, we're on the outside, but yet we're chosen, and we have special, but not all of us. And then with Michelle Trachtenberg dying yesterday, I was crying.
I was too.
And I was, and I had read Vanessa Shaw, and there were so many, and Dawn in that character in Buffy, she reminds me a lot of Lorelai.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I just couldn't help. I mean, look, I'm going to start crying again. I was so sad, but I think that's one of the things that I don't even realize when I started reading your books. I loved them so much. And I think part of it's because I recognized that I was a huge Buffy and Angel fan.
Yeah. I have never actually watched Angel, which I'm embarrassed to admit, but I think I was just so much a fan of Spike and like, this is where I want this to be. But I came to Buffy late. My sister actually when she had a baby, she was binge watching whatever she had to watch at night, and she was the one who said, there's this show that you just have to watch. Like, it's amazing. And she was the one who hooked me on Buffy. So I didn't actually become a Buffy fan until Buffy was over, and then binge watched it multiple times through. So I was not there in the OG, but I think some of the things that make Buffy so important to my life and so many others is that you're right, that idea of being kind of the outsider, the idea of popularity and belonging and being true to yourself and accepting who you truly are, that authenticity, and how difficult that can be when you're still trying to figure out who you are. And also that pressure of being the chosen one and feeling like this is all on your shoulders, and then realizing the people that are there with you to help you carry that load. And that sense of found family is like one of the biggest themes that I like to explore. And I know it's, it's common in fantasy in particular, but really everywhere. Like you probably have that in cowboy books and everything, right? It's like that you choose your family, and it's just an important part of the human condition, is finding those people that will stand by you thick and thin. And
your tribe. Yeah.
I double down on that in pretty much everything.
The reason I love Angel, it doesn't have anything to do with Buffy. It actually has to do with, I think it's the best arc of a beta male becoming an alpha male back to a quasi bolt. Like,
Okay.
it's about Wesley.
Mm-hmm.
And when Wesley moves over to Angel and he tries to be the alpha male and that fails, he's already failed at being the watch. He just keeps failing and failing and failing. And then at the very last season, in those very few episodes, he's kind of like a Xander character or a Dawn character, the one you're not really paying attention to, who is the one who shines. And it's not the people with it. And I have loved Wesley's arc. That's why, because I'm also a huge Spike fan. I don't like Angel. My daughter disagrees, but I loved it.
A few people.
I loved his character arc so much that I think you'd love it, because he reminds me a lot of Kieran, actually.
Okay.
I think you'd really love it. And some of the others, one of the male, I can't remember his name, but one of the ones in the Eternal Shadow, the Shadow Demons and Eternal Sorrows. I think he was in Eternal Sorrows.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
Team Spike.
Sarah. Yeah, Team Spike.
Yeah,
Sarah,
Team Spike.
I was really interested in your Ouija board / tarot card experiences. I read your bio on your website where you said that you would bring out the Ouija board when you were growing up in your family's log cabin, which I thought was wonderful. Yeah. And so how did the Ouija board lead to the tarot cards?
It's kind of interesting. I feel like I wouldn't touch a Ouija board today because I feel like it's more scary as an adult, but as a kid, you think it's just a toy. I probably was playing with fire, but I think for me, I just was always drawn to things that were spooky. And it's fun to see that my daughter is the same way. She's only 5, but she likes the spooky stuff. And my son gets scared of everything. So we're very different, but she is like me, like that love of spooky. And so I grew up in the woods. We didn't really have much TV. We had, compared to kids and screens they have available now, I had almost nothing. And so I played a lot in the woods. Wow. And so your imagination just goes wild because especially in the woods at night, you've got every little noise. You could only imagine what it is. And so when I would have birthday parties, just like every year for my birthday, I would invite a bunch of girls over. And my goal was always like, how can I scare them? And it was so much fun. I mean, it was all in good fun, but pulling out a Ouija board or telling ghost stories or, having a fire outside and telling spooky stories and stuff, that was like the most fun for me. But I was always interested in tarot as well and never really had access to cards or anything like that. And then when I probably only just, I think 7 years ago, I met someone that knew how to read tarot cards. And I was like, oh, okay, I want to learn how to do this. And it turns out it's not spooky at all. It's really just an interesting tool for like getting into your own intuition, I guess. And so I've really enjoyed that. But I thought so many times, like that was one of the things I knew I wanted in this book was a Ouija board scene, just because it's so much fun to think about like a bunch of teens. It's such a like typical kind of teen funny thing to do, like where you're trying to who's going to be scared and who's going to think it's real and who's going to know that it's fake and who's moving things around, that kind of thing. So it was a fun scene to write.
Well, Sarah, I have to admit to you that this is my first book that I've read of yours.
Okay.
But I have been a longtime fan of your YouTube videos, of your classes, so I have followed you and known about you for like, I don't know, 5 years or whatever, like years and years. And some of your videos have really meant a lot to me, like the one about how to write when you're scared, or how to, anyway. So I have been a big follower of that. So it was really fun for me to actually read one of your books, because I, have just followed your life theories and your writing theories and your help for writers, which I think is just really impressive and really makes a big difference to writers. So talk to us a few minutes just about how you kind of got into that and how you made that transition and where all that came from.
I mean, I never thought that it would be as big as it has gotten. And it's just, I think it's one of the greatest blessings of my whole life is getting to be on YouTube and talk to authors and share honestly the struggles that I go through. Like, that is such a gift to me, that people are willing to watch that and not judge it, but rather see themselves in it, I think, because it's a scary thing to put your life on YouTube sometimes, because there is the criticism that comes, or the people that try to, fix you or tell you when you're doing things wrong. But for the most part, it's such a huge community of people that are in the same boats. Like, as creative people, we just want so badly to be able to express ourselves and to learn how to do this, but it's not like it exists in a vacuum. We don't just sit down and write no matter what's going on in the world, or no matter, it's like this comes out of our brain, and our brains are affected by all the things going on and all the things we've been through in the past. And so that's the constant creative struggle, is to get, to a place where you're free enough to write and to put that on paper. And I have always loved the path. Oh, hi, Hope. I've always loved the path of self-publishing. And for me, it was just the perfect timing to get into it, because it was suddenly like, okay, I could either, potentially go for 10 years and never get a publishing deal, or I can just do it my way. And I think because I actually have a master's degree in opera singing, which is the most random fact about me.
Wow, I love it.
Yeah.
And in that opera training, I wanted very much to express myself in singing the way that I wanted to do. But every time you turn around, they're saying, go listen to this specific soprano and how she sang that aria, and you need to do it exactly like her. And when you get on stage, you have to do exactly that. There was just not a lot of room for creative expression when you're at that level. I think once you get to a higher level, you probably have more leeway. But I just started to see that for my personality, I just wanted to have the control to do it the way I wanted to do it. And at that time, it was fun to explore. So anyway, long story short, by the time I had been going at this for a while, a lot of people were calling me kind of like an indie evangelist, because I just would talk about it so much. And it started to turn into, over time, less a thing about passion and getting your work out there in the way you wanted, and more about, well, if you want to make money, here's how you have to do it. And I just found myself feeling like I wanted to be a voice out there for people that wanted to do it how they want to do it. And because that idea of, well, this is the way you have to do it and there's no other choice, is really not true. It's coming from someone's fear or someone's perspective, but it's not the truth at all. And I just wanted to be a voice of hope for people that have their own way of wanting to do it, and the things they want to write. Because people would say, you can't write YA. Nobody makes money writing YA and indie. I'm like, well, that's what I want to write. And I've made over $2 million doing it. So
Awesome.
somebody's making money. People are doing it. And in the end, it's, the money is great too, because we want to have a career, but also there's a lot of fulfillment in writing the thing you want to write, like we were talking about before. So that's how I got started with it, was just, okay, my husband said, you're spending so much of your time in private DMs and text messages with people, telling them no, encouraging them, you can do it your way. Here's an idea. Here's a strategy. And he was like, if you would just put that all on YouTube, you wouldn't spend all of your time in private messages with people. It would save me time. And instead it just turned into a whole, second life almost for me. And I started sharing my planners and who knew there were so many of us as writers who love our planners and index cards. And, I am a plotter, so I love to pull out the highlighters and all those things and get the story down on paper. And it's just really fun for me. And I think it's fun for a lot of us as authors. And of course, there's a lot of people who just, pants and fly by the seat of their pants too, which is great too. But for those of us that love to plot, the notebooks and the sticky notes and highlighters are a fun part of being a writer.
Yeah, I think you did mention that you have another class coming up, correct? Or
yeah, so the HB90 Boot Camp is a 90-day planning course, and it's not just for authors, it's just for any creative entrepreneur or anybody who has goals that they want to hit. And for me, this course came about not because I wanted to start a course, but because I had hit a point shortly after having my son where I was just like, I think it was like an upper limit where I just, even though I had suddenly everything I had dreamed of, I couldn't get off the couch. Like I was just hit a depression almost, and couldn't really explain it. And I had to work through some personal stuff. That's where the writer and the mental health stuff comes in. I couldn't write until I dealt with some of that mental health issues. And then I thought, I've got to find a way to remotivate myself. And so I started putting my to-do list on sticky notes on the wall. So that I could see it and I couldn't ignore it and I just could see it. And when I first started my YouTube channel, people saw all the sticky notes on the wall and thought that it was my plot. And so I started talking about it, and that naturally turned into teaching people what my process is for setting goals for 90 days and then breaking those goals down into tiny little Post-it notes that you can do 1 or 2 every day. And so now I've had over 4,000 students have gone through that class. Oh, wow. So we do it every single quarter. Yeah, it's amazing. It's like a movement or something. We all of our sticky notes. Sharon, were you in that very first class? That is so great. That's exciting. I was also in the
first Publish and Thrive class.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I love that class. I'm super passionate about it. It's totally changed my life. And one of the things that's cool about it is really you don't have to use the sticky notes. You can use a digital tool or checklist or whatever you want. But it's just it gives your brain a way to say, okay, let me not put more on my plate than what I can actually handle. And then let me give myself very clear direction on how I'm going to achieve that goal. If you want to sell 10,000 books, how am I going to do it? And it kind of walks you through the strategy of that. So that class launches on Saturday and will run on March 15th. So we do it every quarter. So once you've joined, you can join it for free every time.
And I think are the quarterly pages discounted right before the course starts, right?
Yeah. So the Q2 planners will go up for sale next week, and I always run them like 15 or 20% off right before the class.
Okay, we'll make sure we put the links.
Oh, thank you.
Video, so for anybody who's interested.
Well, thank you, Sarah. It was so nice meeting you and reading The Disappearance of Vanessa Shaw and learning about all your process. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you guys love the book. I feel like it was such a labor of love to, like you said, learn how to really craft a story in that way. And I'm just really proud of how it turned out. And it means a lot when someone else loves it too. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, loved everything.
Yes, love the book. We love you.
Oh, I love you guys too.
Do a class. Your next class should be on how to start a YouTube channel.
I have had a lot of requests for that. And, really, when it comes to authors, there's so many different ways that you can go about being on YouTube. You don't have to just teach people about how to write or how to self-publish. You can almost be more like a booktuber or whatever. So, or you can do like I do on my Sarra Cannon channel. So my next story that is called A Mirror of Shadows, this will be set in the Shadow Demons world, but it's more new adult. And it's more of a romance. So it's going to be an enemies to lovers, more slow burn romance. I'm so excited because the hero is just, he's probably one of my favorite male characters I've ever written so far. And I'll be reading that story live every Tuesday and Thursday, probably starting in April. So if anyone wants to come listen, just come subscribe over there. It's at Sarra Cannon. And so you'll get to listen to it cliffhanger by cliffhanger as I'm writing it. So it's going to be really fun.
Oh, that sounds fun. And you know what, Sarah, I want to hear you sing sometime.
I do.
You've got me so curious.
I feel like it was such a, sometimes it's like that second, a different life. Like I was a
Yeah.
different person back then in some ways, but I do still sing to my daughter.
Oh, that's so
Aw,
lovely.
so neat.
Well, thank you again. We really loved talking to you. You're absolutely a doll, and we just appreciate you being here and sharing your stuff with our book club. So thank you so much.
for having me. I appreciate it. It's good to see you guys.
Bye.
Oh, guys.
That was fun.
That was fun.
She's
I
great.
love her. I think we should have her back again. She was really fun.
To grab onto her, never let go. Yeah.
Right. So, book club, we have a really super, it's not going to be a fun book, I wouldn't say, but an edge of your seat kind of book that we're going to be reading this next time. If you like that, that's fun, right? I like that. That's my jam, it just depends, but it will definitely.
Abbie and I are in a competition to see who has the darker.
And so we will be reading Diana's Fatal Promises next month.
Very excited.
So
I'm so excited to share this with you guys. I can't wait to chat with you all next month.
Yeah, I can't wait to read it. I've got it, and I got it the day it came out, and I was like, well, I can't wait to read it.
Yep.
All right, well, we'll drop some links for that too in the chat. So bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for stopping by. Bye.